What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC Vegas 51. We have Vicente Luque going against Belal Muhammad. Should be a fun main event. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to this fight card this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as good as last week's fight card, but as everything, it just goes where we're going to have more opportunities to cash some bets, make some money, really analyze some fights, and see if we can come out on the other side with a little bit of more money in our pocket. And this is a fascinating main event. I think Belal Muhammad's a really smart fighter, and I think Vicente Luque is such a fantastic moment winner and can change the trajectory of a fight just like that it makes it an extra fascinating fight to break down. So I can't wait to chop it up with you, brother.
I cannot wait as well. We'll talk about all the stats for the fight. We'll talk about it with the chat as well. And then we'll talk about it from a betting perspective, see if we can find any spots that we do like on this fight. Before we get started, if you guys can please leave a like, subscribe here to the MMA Engine. I think we're like 30 subs away from 500. So thank you guys so much. You guys have been killing it with the subscribe button. Let's try to get that 500 in the very near future. We got first one in the chat. We got Lou Betcha. What is up, Lou? How are you doing? We got Mark in the chat as well. Grateful dude. Lou saying it's nice having a main event where one guy isn't minus 2,900 or 29,000. And yeah, I agree. Last week we had Volkanovski. Pretty easy main event to break down. This one is a little bit more complicated to break down for sure. We got the general in the chat saying, let's go. What is up, general? We got Cole saying, what's good, boys? What a wild 273. Excited for this weekend's event. To Let's Cash as always. Yep, Cole, thank you for hanging out. Dad's saying fire up the engine. I agree with that. We got Paul. What is up, Paul? How you doing? Eric in the chat as well. MMA Engine is fired up. Let's roll. And Lou Betcha saying you could do a royal parlay this weekend with the Monkey King and the Elbow Queen. I'd be interested in maybe doing like the opposite of both those. But yeah, that is very interesting, Lou. And then we got Rob saying cheers, everyone. Cheers, Rob. And we got Daz saying Elbow Queen. I like that name. That's a great name. So I say we get right into it. We'll start, as always, with the tail of the tape. We have Vicente Luque, Belal Muhammad. Vicente Luque, he is 30 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. Belal Muhammad, 33 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. It's going to be Luque, who's going to be 3 years younger, and it's also going to be Luque, who's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage as well. Luque training out of Sanford and Belal Muhammad training out of Rufasport. We'll take a look at the last few fights. Vicente Luque is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had a decision loss to Stephen Thompson, a knockout win against Nico Price, a knockout win against Randy Brown, a submission win against Tyron Woodley, and then a submission win against Michael Chiesa his last time out. As far as Belal Muhammad, he has 4-0 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Lyman Good, a decision win against Diego Lima, a no contest against Leon Edwards, a decision win against Damian Maia, and then just recently a decision win against Stephen Thompson. Weezy, anything sticking out to you in the tail of the tape?
Not much on this one, man. Luque's got a 3-inch reach advantage. And I mean, we saw the first time that they fought that, Luque just did a really nice job on the feet there. And Belal Muhammad always is going to be the one trying to close the distance. He's kind of a small welterweight. So Luque a little bit bigger, that nice little reach advantage, 3 years younger. And then in terms of the strength of schedule, we'll talk about that later. But those numbers are pretty similar too. So, we've got a really good matchup here. Next thing we got to talk about, though, is the experience. And once again, it's kind of close, where Luque's got 5 more fights than Belal Muhammad, but it's Belal Muhammad who's got 50 more minutes in the cage because his average fight time is around 13 minutes. Luque's is sitting around 9. And then it's Luque, though, who's been a pro for almost 13 years at this point. He's been fighting since he was 17 years old. And Belal Muhammad with a 9.5-year career. And the UFC stats actually very similar too. 2 more fights for Luque, but it's Belal Muhammad who's got like 57 more minutes in the cage because the guy goes to decision way more often than Luque does.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about those finish stats, Weezy. So something that really sticks out to me this week is going to be the finish only for Luque. It's something we'll talk about. I'm very curious in that bet, and just curious to hear the finish numbers between the two.
Okay, yeah. So Vicente Luque with a 90% career finish rate. So that means he's finished 19 out of his 21 career wins inside the distance, and 38% by sub and 52% by knockout. So the guy can finish you a number of different ways. And Vicente has been finished in 2 of his 7 losses. He's never been knocked out. He has been subbed twice. But what's really interesting about Luque is the fact that he has finished actually at a higher percentage within the UFC than he has outside of it, as Luque has a 93% finish rate in his 14 UFC wins. So 13 of 14 wins coming inside the distance for Luque. And this is a 5-round fight, not a 3-round fight. This guy's been finishing guys in 3 rounds. So now he's got 25 minutes to do it instead of 15. So Luque is absolutely a savage finisher. And Belal Muhammad's pretty much the opposite. You know, in 11 UFC fights, 9 wins or an 11 wins for you, Belal Muhammad in the UFC. 9 of those wins are by decision. Only 2 of them are by finish, 1 by submission, 1 by knockout. And he has a 25% career finish rate. It's about as low as you'll see at the UFC level. So only 5 of Belal's 20 career wins have been inside the distance, 4 of them by knockout, 1 by sub. And Belal's been finished in only 1 out of his 3 career losses. It was by knockout. And that man that finished him, do you have any idea who that was, Brady? I'll give you one guess.
Vicente Luque?
Yes, you got that right, brother.
Ooh,
so
let's go.
Yeah, this is the rematch. You know, I mean, like, this is a guy who basically has never been finished in 24 fights, except for by the guy that he's gonna be fighting on Saturday. So, you know, it kind of opens up the possibilities here as to what could happen.
Yeah, that's what makes this fight so interesting. Like you said, we saw this fight before. You can go back and watch that fight. It was back in 2016 in November, but it was only a 1 minute and 19-second long fight. I wish we could have seen more. We'd have a bigger sample size, but basically in that fight, Luque knocked him out. Luque caught him. Belal didn't really even have a chance to start going in for takedowns. So I wish I would have seen that fight play out a little bit more, but we'll get to see a lot more play out this week, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, and especially because Belal is the kind of guy who usually tries to fight in a way that makes his opponent most uncomfortable. And I know Belal wasn't comfortable getting knocked out by Vicente Luque. He probably hated that. He learned a lot from it. It was 5, 6 years ago at this point. So we've got to predict that Belal is not going to sit there and let Vicente get comfortable for the first 2.5 minutes of this fight on the feet. You got to believe that Belal is going to close the distance quickly. A very similar game plan that what he had against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to do that. And, like we talked about before the show, Belal is a very, very smart fighter. He went out there against Stephen Thompson and he did what he needed to do. He didn't care that, people called him boring. People called the fight boring. He went out there and got the win. He took down Stephen Thompson 7 times and controlled him for 12 minutes of that fight and just controlled him and just won the fight 1 minute. And if, that's what it takes to win this fight, which it is, I think he'll have no problem doing that.
I mean, he has to be trying to do that because Bilal's never been the kind of guy to go out there and fight his opponent's fight. He's always fighting his fight. And that's why Belal Muhammad is 20-3 in his career and why he's 11-3 at the UFC level. And the average record of the guy that Bilal's beating in the UFC has almost 7 wins and under 4 losses. So he's beating legitimate UFC level veteran competition, and he's not doing it by being stupid.
Oh yeah, for sure. Something interesting that I did pick out when Belal Muhammad is losing, he's getting knocked down. He got knocked down against Alan Jouban 3 times and lost. He got obviously knocked down and knocked out by Luque, and then he got knocked down twice by Jeff Neal and lost. So he's actually 0-3 in fights that he's been knocked down. And on the flip side, Luque, when he gets taken down more than once, he is losing. He lost against Leon Edwards. He lost against Michael Graves. So I think this fight plays out one of 2 ways. I think, Belal Muhammad comes in here. He takes down Luque multiple times. If he wins, I see a lot of takedowns from Muhammad, a lot of control time. But if Muhammad loses, it probably means he gets knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, especially with all those UFC wins for Vicente Luque, 14 UFC wins, 13 UFC finishes. I mean, this guy is absolutely powerful. And because he's the kind of guy who will rely on his chin if he has to, it makes him even more dangerous because he doesn't really have to be that cautious. He can actually just kind of go after it and make his opponent fight his fight. Start the war because Vicente Luque is very good at finishing wars, even the ones that he's losing at the start. So he's going to try to drag Belal into a war, but I don't think Belal is going to go willingly. And one of the stats that I was looking at here for Vicente Luque in particular is that, in all these fights that Luque has, right? He has had 39 takedowns attempted against him. And he's had how many fights? We go 28 to 44. So 17 fights, right? 17 fights. He's only had 39 takedowns attempted against him. And if you take out the fights where he had, a bunch of takedowns, so like, let's say 3 fights, Brady, where he had more than 2 takedowns attempted against him, right? Only 3. And he's 1-2 in those fights. The only fight that he won was the Nico Price fight, and that was a comeback win in the 3rd round. Otherwise, in these fights where he's not being where he's seeing less than 2 takedowns attempted against him, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-1. He's got a 13-1 record when his opponents attempt 2 or less takedowns. So you got to believe that Belal is going to be working those takedowns. He's going to be trying to get this fight on the fence. He's going to be trying to get this fight to the ground. He's going to be trying to work that cardio of Luque, really make this fight dirty. Because when people don't do that to Luque, they usually wind up looking at the lights wondering what the hell just happened.
Yeah, like for example, Tyron Woodley in his fight against Luque, and that was a weird game plan for Woodley. It looked like he tried to take down Luque initially and couldn't do it, and then Woodley said, "Eff it, I'm just going to stand and bang with Luque for some reason." And like that's what you don't want to do. Like he did the complete opposite thing of what you should do against Luque. And obviously ended up getting knocked out. You can't go chin for chin with Vicente Luque. I mean, he's gonna beat you more times than not. I mean, you need a baseball bat to hurt Vicente Luque. So let's talk about these striking numbers a little bit, Weezy. Initially, I thought that, Belal maybe could go out here and win some minutes in the striking, but I don't know. I mean, I think Vicente Luque is going to hurt him really bad on the feet if they do stand there. I think Luque is going to be landing the much harder shots. Maybe Muhammad, wins the volume, but I think the harder shots can be from Luque. So I really don't think Muhammad should stand and strike with Luque, although Luque is very hittable. He does rely on his chin, but I think the power difference is going to be a huge gap between the two here.
A huge gap. Vicente Luque has 10 UFC knockdowns in 17 UFC fights. Belal Muhammad has 0 UFC knockdowns in 15 UFC fights. Not one knockdown. He has 1 less knockdown than Michael Chiesa. So Belal Muhammad is at a huge power differential here, and we know that this guy Luque is knocking people out. He's subbing people. He's finishing people. And sometimes when he subs people, it's a result of him hurting them first on the feet. Best example of that is the Tyron Woodley fight. And we saw Luque's chin, not so much the chin, but he got clipped behind the ear by Woodley, lost his balance a little bit. And when Woodley rushed in and tried to finish him, Luque was just comfortable there. It looked like he was actually comfortable being hurt and counter punching, which is terrifying. You don't want to be in striking exchanges with people like that, with people who can keep their eyes open while people are throwing bombs at them and they're throwing straighter punches and actually mentally preparing to land the quicker, straighter shots. That's what Luque does in these kind of situations. So, we're going to see Belal at a huge power differential here, but Belal's good defensively. He's very defensively responsible. He moves his feet. He moves laterally very well. He's been knocked down, though, 6 times in 15 UFC fights, and we know that Luque's got 11 knockdowns in 17 UFC fights. So as good as Belal is out voluming his opponents, outlanding his opponents, and occasionally winning minutes in the striking exchanges, I just don't think it would behoove him to try to do much of that on Saturday.
Yeah, and I don't think he will. I think he's going to come out here and try to implement the same game plan of Stephen Thompson, because why would he not go in here and try to take down Luque early and often? So let's take a look at some of these takedown numbers. It's very impressive how many takedowns Muhammad is attempting. Looks like 87 takedowns attempted and he's completed 29 of them. So he definitely does go for takedowns.
Absolutely, he goes for them, so that is about 6 takedown attempts per fight, and that is 2.2 takedowns completed per 15 minutes. And more importantly, his fights are taking place in control time positions about 30% of his UFC cage time. So that would be about almost 60 minutes out of 200 here, that he's controlling his opponents, or that the fights are in control time positions. But he's got 25% control time for and only 5% control time against. So he's out controlling his opponents at a 5-to-1 ratio when these fights do get into the control time positions. So that's where Belal is really good at winning minutes. But he's going to need to win more than 25% of this fight in control time positions. That number is going to need to be closer to about 50 or 60% here, because every minute that he's on the feet, he's really risking, eating one of those big bombs from Luque and then getting finished. So Belal, not as accurate as I'd like to see him in those takedown attempts. I always like to see that number over around 40% or better. He's at 33%, but at least he's, going for takedowns. I saw in the Jeff Neal fight, and Jeff Neal's got excellent takedown defense, that Belal got deep on a couple of takedowns, but when he couldn't take down Jeff Neal, he kind of just had to play in that striking range. And while Neal hurt him a few times and was unable to finish him, you still saw Belal, kind of like making adjustments, going to the body, starting to work the legs, throwing different combinations. He's always kind of taking in the information you give him in a fight and finding ways to use his pace, to use his mind in order to find ways to win little stretches of the fight, and try to win enough of those stretches to bank enough rounds to get a decision. Luque is really not trying to grapple that much, Brady. I mean, when you got that kind of power, right, you don't really need to shoot that many takedowns. 12 takedown attempts in 17 fights for Vicente Luque. So he's not an offensive grappler here, but he's gotten 50% of his takedown attempts. And even though he's got 6 takedowns and his opponents have 14, Luque's only getting out-controlled 17.8% to 14.4%. So he's been very efficient in the grappling exchanges. You can take this guy down, but he's not particularly easy to hold there. I would say about 22, 23 minutes of control time yielded on 14 takedowns here. So that's not a huge number. And he's stopping about 64% of the takedown attempts against him, getting taken down about 1.5 times per 15 minutes. So, how is Luque's takedown defense going to hold up? How is the get-up game going to hold up? And how is the gas tank going to hold up for 5 rounds if Belal is going to do what I think he's going to do and what he probably will do, because he's a very smart fighter and he knows how to make his opponents uncomfortable? I think Belal is going to push a wrestling-heavy game plan for the full 5 here, and we're going to find out which one of these guys has a better gas tank as a result of Belal pushing that pace.
I wonder who's going to have the better cardio down the stretch, because it's very exhausting. I'm assuming Muhammad's going to go for a ton of takedowns early on. I think both guys have great cardio. I haven't really seen them slow down much. Vicente Luque, he's in these wars. He's throwing a ton of strikes every single fight, and he's still dangerous, from the start to the finish. Like in the Nico Price fight, this dude landed 130 strikes. He attempted 237, and he was still able to finish, Nico Price down the stretch. And then Belal Muhammad, great gas tank as well. So I'm curious to see what this guy's, or both guys' gas tank looks like in that 4th and 5th round. But we talked about the tail of the tape, the experience, finish stats, striking, and grappling. You mentioned the strength of schedule a little bit. It looks pretty close.
It is, a 2.02 ratio for Luque, a 2.07 ratio for Muhammad. So almost identical. We see that Muhammad's competition is just a little more experienced on the aggregate here with 11 fights. With Luque, it's 9. So yeah, average record of a Luque opponent, 6-3. Average record of a Belal Muhammad opponent, like 7.5 and 3.6 losses. So yeah, just a little bit better on the aggregate there for Muhammad. When we look at the wins, both of these guys are beating guys that have a ratio at almost 2 wins to losses, and they have at least 8 fights. So both of these guys are beating quality competition. And then when you look at the guys that are beating Luque and Muhammad, I mean, it's champion level guys, guys with almost a 3-to-1 win-loss ratio and sitting around 10 fights to 12 fights. So both of these guys, you really can't say one of them has much of an advantage over the other here. They're both fighting some of the best guys that the UFC has to offer.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, everything on paper here looks pretty close, right? I think outside of like the finish stats, everything else looks really close.
See, what bothers me here, right? So let's talk about Stephen Thompson, okay? Both of these guys have fought Stephen Thompson. Vicente Luque lost to Stephen Thompson, a 3-round fight. Luque landed 77 strikes, and Thompson landed 138, right? So we saw a situation where Luque was losing on the feet, and then he wasn't able to get a wrestling game plan going to kind of change the fight, to make the adjustment when he realized he was losing here. In that fight against Stephen Thompson, he attempted 0 takedowns, so he kind of just waited for that big shot. It didn't come, and as a result, he lost that fight. He relied on his power. But you look at what, obviously, it's fresh in our mind what Belal Muhammad just did to Stephen Thompson. He landed 58 significant strikes. He landed 7 takedowns on 9 attempts and out-controlled Stephen Thompson 717 seconds to 52. So we saw a guy use his wrestling when he was clearly outgunned on the feet. And then what was the fight before that? Damian Maia, where Belal Muhammad shoots 0 takedowns, uses his striking when he realizes that he's at a deficit, on the ground, and nobody wants to go to the ground with Damian Maia. So I see 2 fighters here. I see a guy in Vicente Luque who's fairly one-dimensional. He relies on his power. He relies on his chin. He's a warrior. He never quits. He's born to fight, and he's looking to finish you, to get you out of there on a stretcher. And he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that that happens. And then you've got for the opponent, the thinking man, the guy who tries to make his opponent uncomfortable, the guy who doesn't care if he gets booed, the guy who's going to shoot takedowns when you're a great striker and is going to stuff your takedowns when you're a great grappler, and is going to just try to make whatever adjustments he can within a fight, while a fight is happening, in order to find that win, to find those minutes that he can edge you out and win on the judge's scorecard. It's a really fascinating stylistic matchup. It's brains versus brawn. It's, grinder versus just, spectacular lights out striker. And yeah, that's what's going to make this such a fascinating fight to bet.
Oh yeah, let's take a look at this line. So we see that Luque opened up -210, and he is currently sitting at -270 or -170.
Whoa, I was like, whoa.
Big bet came in now. Belal Muhammad opened up at +180, and he is currently +145. So yeah, I do think Luque should be the favorite, just because, like I said last night, like 25 minutes is in an eternity, to be in there with a guy as dangerous as Vicente Luque. But at the same time, you could argue that, Belal Muhammad can absolutely come in here and win minutes with his takedown. So, Vicente Luque -170. I see him -185, -189. Looks like the best price you can get on him is -167. Belal Muhammad looks like the best price you can get on him is +162. Any thoughts on the money line?
So with Muhammad, I don't think you even need to go at +150. I think you can even just say, I want him by decision. Muhammad by decision +225, even better. Because is he really going to finish Vicente Luque? Is he going to pull a foreign object out of his tights like he's Cowboy Bob Orton back in the 80s? I don't think so, man. I don't think he's finishing this guy. I don't think anybody really is finishing Vicente Luque without a brick or without a really high-level submission game when, even the toughest guys need to breathe, So, I mean, like, that's usually how you finish some of the toughest guys, is via submission, or when you just shut off their body or their leg with a vicious shot. But so I think when it comes to the money line, I'm going to be hunting for value if I'm on that Belal Muhammad side. And something tells me that if I'm on that Belal side, Brady, that I can just wait. Because one thing that people are going to do is they're going to watch tape. And when you watch tape on Vicente Luque, you're going to be like, man, even if you think that Belal might wrestle fuck him for the full 5 rounds, you're going to say, I want my money on Luque. This guy is how could you not like Vicente Luque? You'd have to like hate puppies. You'd have to hate like sunny days and beautiful landscapes. You would have to hate a lot of like things that most people love. I mean, this guy Luque is about as likable as it gets. He's as likable of a fighter as the UFC 170-pound division has. Even more likable than Colby Chaos Covington, who everybody loves. So yeah, he's that kind of fighter. So I mean, I think that if you're on that Muhammad side, you're probably going to see some money coming in on Luque here. He's the flashier dude. He's the guy that when you watch his tape, you say, shit, man, did you fucking see that? Not only are you impressed by his toughness and his chin, but man, when his offense starts to fly, he's so dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like money is coming back in on the Luque side there. Let's take a look at some of these other props. Looks like the over-under is set at 4.5. I think it's pretty simple here. If you like Luque, you probably look towards the under. If you like Muhammad, you probably look towards the over. The fight goes to decision -105. The fight doesn't go to decision is -125. Any thoughts on those, or do you agree? Like if you like Muhammad, over, Luque, under.
Exactly. No reason to play the time props here because the time props are just, they're augmented props on the fighters involved. If you like the under at -120, why not just take Vicente Luque inside the distance at +135?
Yeah.
If you like the over at -120, why not just take Belal Muhammad by decision at +225 and then maybe sprinkle a little bit of Luque by decision because Belal has only been finished by Vicente Luque. And it was I'm not going to call it a lucky shot. It wasn't lucky. It was perfectly placed right on the chin. But, sometimes it's the punches that you don't see coming that put you out. And that's what happened to Belal. So, yeah, maybe that's how I would play it. The time props, they feel like you should just be, betting the individual decision prop on Muhammad or the finish prop on Luque.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Effie's saying, who does the smaller cage favor?
I would say it favors Belal because he's going to be trying to cut this dude off and trying to uh get the fight to the ground. So, it helps when you have more room to move laterally and you can kind of turn that cage into a spiral and it just never ends. It's a circle. Unless you cut it off, it's really hard to get somebody's back up against the cage or to engage them in a clinch or get their back up against the fence. So the smaller cage, I think, is going to always pressure the guy or always favor the guy that pressures more. And I mean, if Belal's not pressuring in this fight, they're going to be checking his heart pressure when he's getting seen that if he the smelling salts after he gets knocked out by Luque here. So.
Yeah, it's going to favor Muhammad for sure. But yeah, typically a small cage would favor Luque, but it's definitely matchup dependent. And Muhammad's going to want that small cage, you got to think. Let's take a look at some of the props. We have Muhammad by KO +1250. Like you said, unless he brings a shovel, I just don't know if that happens. Luque by KO +165. Muhammad by submission +650. Luque by submission +900. Muhammad inside the distance +500. Luque inside the distance +135. Muhammad by decision +225, and Luque by decision is +300. I think it's simple, right? If you like Luque, +135 inside the distance. If you like Muhammad, +225 by decision. I think that's the two ways I look, right?
That's my thought on this one. Yeah, because like I say, the time props feel useless because it's, I mean, we see Muhammad's finish rate, is not good. Luque is a spectacular finisher. So yeah, if you like the under, just bet Luque inside the distance. And you can bet Luque inside the distance at +130 and Muhammad by decision at +225. And if one of them hits, you're up money. If you put the same amount on both, that is. But
Yeah.
It's still, it's one way to look at this, because this is not a fight that is going to be particularly, you're not going to see Belal winning by spinning heel kick in the first round here. I mean, this is one of the more predictable fights, but Belal is so good at imposing his will and his game plan that's why this is closely lined. It's not because anybody thinks that Belal is more dangerous than Vicente. It's just that Belal is really dangerous when it comes to winning minutes and shutting off the best part of his opponent's game plan. And that's what Belal is going to try to do here.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the line I'm looking at is going to be that scorecards equals no action on Bet Online right now. Scorecards equals no action means that if this fight goes to decision, whether it's Luque winning or Muhammad winning, or the bet is voided. If Muhammad wins inside the distance, the bet loses, and if Luque wins inside the distance, the bet hits. And we talked about the finish rate. Luque a 93% finish rate in the UFC, and Muhammad around, what was it, like 30 something?
Well, so it's 18% in the UFC, and I think it's on the aggregate. Muhammad's finish rate is
25.
25%.
Okay, even better, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, scorecards equals no action. I really wish FanDuel and DraftKings had gotten the props out by now, but I'm gonna wait till they get the props out. But yeah, the scorecards equals no action right now on Bet Online is minus 325. I do like that, but I have a feeling DraftKings or FanDuel might get something out a little bit better. So that's kind of the thing I have circled for this fight. I'd be really surprised if Muhammad finished Luque.
Yeah, it's a 5-round fight, so I mean, obviously anything can happen. Maybe Muhammad breaks him late and gets a rear naked choke or something like that, but like you say, I mean, we know how Belal wins minutes. He doesn't win moments that often, not in the UFC. And we don't really see a guy like Luque getting his lights shut off either. I mean, like you say, you'd have to bring a brick in there. So that seems like a great bet, a great way to look at this fight stylistically and say that Luque's got a way better chance to finish it than Muhammad does.
Yeah, and if I wanted to hedge a little bit, I could sprinkle a little bit on Muhammad wins in round 5 plus 4,000. Muhammad wins in round 4 plus 3,000. Those are pretty juicy.
Yeah, and they'll probably get juicier as the week goes on too, because I just feel like the money's going to be coming in on Luque. He's so fun to watch. He's so spectacular. He's the kind of guy that people love to bet on.
Yeah, I feel like that as well. Muhammad by submission in round 5 plus 4,500. Muhammad by submission in round 4 plus 3,500. But yeah, I'm kind of looking at that scorecards equals no action. I keep refreshing, waiting for FanDuel and DraftKings to get them out, but they're taking their time this week for the main event.
Yeah, yeah, they like to do that sometimes. This card, I mean, I think they were all a little bit hungover from the last card. Such a big, heavy action card, and now this week's is a step down. So maybe these guys, after some of their after the parlays got busted by Peter Yan on Saturday night, these guys probably went out drinking and had a good time because they took a lot of people for a lot of money. And now maybe we're just waiting for them to sober up and get these lines out for this week.
Yeah, so it was Askar Askarov that busted the parlays 2 weeks ago. It was Piotr Jan last week. I wonder who's going to bust the parlays this week.
Hey, that's a good question, man, because there's some big favorites on this card, and we know how it goes, man. Not everything works out the way you think it's going to work out. And the bet that you made that I loved, that I was on vacation basically, from the UFC, so I missed the line, was that Hamzat Burns fight doesn't go to decision.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how the hell did that not cash? I mean, that was crazy. So, but every once in a while, those type of fights happen. Like, it's not just that the fight goes to decision because you thought it was going to be all action, but it wound up being slow paced. It winds up being a 3-round all action fight. It just doesn't finish. So, yeah, great fight. But, that was another place where a lot of people got shaved.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's why I never call anything a lock in MMA. Like, nothing is a lock. Anything can happen. Like, Amanda Nunes lost to Juliana Pena. That still shocks me to this day.
I know. And there's a whole bunch of them. We could go on and on and on. There's all these ones where you're just like, how the hell did that happen? How did Virna Jandiroba get credited with a knockout when she broke Kaneko Murata's arm? I mean, like, damn it, and you that sub ticket, you're just sitting there when it's got tears on it, and it's like, come on, man.
Yeah. I can we can we can do a whole show on stuff like that. But Rob's saying safest money bet for this fight, Weezy.
Oh God, boy, what is the safest bet here? I mean, I see this going two different ways. Belal winning a ton of minutes and Luque winning a moment and finishing Belal. And I think the more likely scenario is that Luque finishes Muhammad here because it's 5 rounds, because he's so tough, because he's so durable, and because he's so dangerous when he is standing. But I think that the more likely scenario is that Luque is going to win inside the distance at plus 130. But I don't think there's a safe bet for this fight. I think both of these guys have paths to victory here, and you really have to decide which one you're on. Do you think Luque lands a big shot, or do you think that Belal gets it done with his minute winning philosophy? Because there's no safe bet. Because if you bet Luque by decision, it's not safe if Belal gets his game plan going. And if Belal can't take down Luque and you're sitting holding there that decision ticket, you're not going to have to wait the full 5 rounds for that not to cash. Luque will probably crack his chin in the second or the third. So there's not a safe bet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the safest bet would be like Belal Muhammad decision only. I would take a look at that, but we don't have a line for that. And then the finish only for Luque. I think that's how I
Yeah,
would attack it.
that's the safest bet. Luque finish only, but you're paying minus 325 already. So it's
Yeah.
not. But yeah, it's hard to see Belal finishing Luque.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, we're 36 minutes in. Weezy, I know you need to go and get prepared for the Die Hard podcast. So, go ahead and give me your final thoughts for the fight, your final pick, and your favorite bet on the fight.
So, I think a lot of these guys that gamble are more likely to bet on the Luque types. I like betting on the Muhammad types. I like betting on guys that have a particular type of skill set. They use it well. They're very predictable, and oftentimes the most boring fighters are the most predictable. But as a gambler who looks at numbers, and who the numbers are very important, I watch so much tape. Don't think that I just sit here looking at numbers and then come up with a pick. I'm always watching tape too. But um, guys that fight like Belal Muhammad, for me, are the kind of guys I like putting my money on. I think I'm going to have a bet on Belal Muhammad round 4-5 decision or Belal by decision, but I'd like to get it better than plus 250 so that I don't have to put down more than 0.4 units to win one. In my opinion, that's the value here because I think that there's almost like a 40 to 45% chance that Belal wins this fight. And if he does, it's going to be by winning minutes and by blanketing Luque, spamming takedowns, and just keeping that fight where Belal can win minutes and Luque can't win moments.
Yeah, makes sense. For me, I'm gonna go with the Luque side. Like I said, 25 minutes with Vicente Luque.
Yeah.
I just feel like at some point he's gonna land a big shot. I do like that finish only quite a bit. That's probably gonna be my bet. I don't like the money line at minus 170, and I think it does continue to get wider. It looks like even like Vicente inside the distance at plus 130. I don't hate that as well. Again, I like that a lot better than the money line. Vicente Luque has only won one decision thus far in the UFC, so. And I do think Belal Muhammad has the potential to come out here and win minutes with his wrestling. So give me the finish only. Let's see here. What does finish only mean? Finish only means that if it goes to decision, the bet is voided. And finish only on Vicente Luque means if Luque wins inside the distance, it hits. And then if Muhammad wins inside the distance, it loses. So I like that bet quite a bit. Das saying he wins by sub or TKO. You talk about Luque. Eric saying I think Luque finishes. Eric saying Bovada has under 4.5 at minus 120. And yeah, like we are talking about, if you like the under, you probably like Luque. You probably like Luque inside the distance. If you like the over, you probably like Muhammad, and you probably like Muhammad by decision. Daz saying Luque by sub sounds interesting. Yeah, I did a 14-1 sub prop on Luque last time. I don't think I'll touch that this time because it's only plus 900. John saying, what about Belal by unanimous decision, Weezy? Covered by Luque by finish only. Yeah, UNAM. I know Bet Online does not have it, but I think DraftKings and FanDuel have it. I think that could be something to look at.
Yeah, that could be really interesting, because if he does win 3-4 rounds, like, easily, I mean, look at Aljo just got 2 takedowns. And with those 2 takedowns, he got about 7.5, 8 minutes of control time. That's 2 rounds, so it really is, an easy way, to bank enough minutes to win a fight. Aljo didn't have to win a lot of stand-up exchanges to get that decision. So I think it's a good way to look at it. These are we've been doing this long enough, Brady, to always say, hey, look, here's what we think, but that really doesn't mean shit at the end of the day. We do a ton of research. People listen to us because we live this and we do this shit every day and we work our asses off. But at the end of the day, it's a fight, and anything can happen. But I try to tell people, here's the facts. You got to decide whether you think Belal can take Vicente down and hold him down. I know that it's a possibility. And I also know that if he doesn't, and if he's not successful pushing that pace for the full 25, that Vicente is going to be very dangerous.
Yep, for sure. For sure. Well said. But I think we covered it all. 41 minutes on this fight, I think is pretty good. We talked about the tail of the tape, the experience, the finish stats, striking stats, grappling, strength of schedule. The last five, we also talked about it from a betting perspective. And yeah, I think that is about it. So, Weezy, let everybody know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week. I know you're going live in about 18 minutes on the Die Hard MMA podcast. I cannot wait for that.
Yeah. I'll be on Pub Sports Radio with my man Clint, Die Hard MMA podcast. We're going to break down this entire UFC Vegas 51 card. And then tomorrow night on my channel, Uncle Weezy on YouTube, you can watch me do Just the Tip. And that will be my full card breakdown for this UFC Vegas 51 card. Break down all 13 fights on the card from a statistical and tape study perspective. And as always, Brady, we finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I'm on a roll. We're going to try to find another spot where you guys can, find somebody who's not only going to win, but going to win quickly and violently like Alexei Oleinik did on Saturday. And you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel as well. And on Thursday night, we'll be doing episode number 2 of Prop Ability, the hottest new show on MMA YouTube, you guys. A data-driven look at over-under bets and fight goes and fight doesn't go to decision bets. It's going to allow us to be able to find when the bookies fucked up and gave us too much value one way or another. Can't wait to chop it up with all you guys. Thank you for spending a Monday afternoon/evening with us, and we'll see you guys soon because you can catch me doing content almost 7 days a week these days.
Sounds good. And you can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I'm about to record my full card breakdown prediction video. That should be out soon. Go check out Weezy in about 15 minutes. Subscribe here to the MMA Engine. Best of luck, everybody. UFC Vegas 51. Let's make some money. We'll talk to you very